Alright, welcome back to another video. Hopefully I'm getting better at this as we go along. I'm going to do several things today. The first thing I'd like to do is top up this bed. That's number one. The reason we're topping up the bed is so that number two, we can fix up the drip irrigation system on the bed. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my drip irrigation system. I don't know that my drip irrigation system is the best. It's what you get at Home Depot. So if you want to go out and get yourself all set up with a Home Depot irrigation system, then some variation of what I've done here is probably going to be what you wind up with, and it's being adequate. So yay, adequacy. And then when I'm done with that, we're going to thin the salad garden one more time so that we get to the final spacing, which means that this weekend I'm going to enjoy some delicious and colorful homegrown salad. Well, the leafy part anyway. None of the accessory vegetables are ready to be harvested yet. So, step one is I'm actually going to get in here and replace some of the drip irrigation system before I fill up. I'm just going to take it to a point where I don't have open holes in my system, so that when I fill this bed up with dirt, I don't fill any open holes in my drip irrigation system with dirt. So that'll be great. So I've done two things in my drip irrigation system. I have the option to allow it to run automatically off of my regular lawn sprinkler system. So I've taken some pictures. Here I'm going to show you a picture of the original sprinkler head. Alright, and then here is the sprinkler head with the guts taken out. Now the new the retrofit kit that I bought, I got online at Amazon because Home Depot didn't have one. So you're probably going to need to go to a dedicated sprinkler store or some sort of agriculturally focused thing and not a big box store to find retrofit kits for existing sprinkler heads. But here's a picture of the retrofit head. Alright, and here it is with its guts out. If you're lucky enough to find a retrofit head that is the same diameter as your existing sprinkler head, just screw out the top, yank out its guts, and then put the new top on for your retrofit kit. It's usually got a threaded mount on it that you can then tee off or elbow off onto your drip irrigation system, and you're set. In mine, there is a pressure regulator built in at each head, so even though I am running off of a regular sprinkler system, I don't have to have 100% drip irrigation on the system in this particular zone, because it's not necessary. Each head has a flow regulator installed. Alright, so let's get this thing taken care of. Hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing alright. I think I'll reposition the camera so that you can get a good look at what I'm doing. It's super simple. Alright, so first, let's yank out these landscape staples. I'm just going to cut off the existing line. You can cut this with scissors. You don't have to. In fact, you might be happier if you don't, but that's how I'm doing it. Alright, and this is all liberated. Oh yeah, this needs to come out all the way. So this is a pressure lock system, which means it can be a little bit difficult to reverse your steps once you've got something installed. Alright, this is where we give up. Now, If you don't like the aesthetic of leaving the tag on, by all means take the tags off. It's not necessary. And when you cut these, make sure you leave allowance for the amount of the line that's going to wind up inside your joint. I think it's about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. Although you can get more if you try really hard. Alright, so now I've got an elbow here. I'm just going to loop this around back. And when I cut these, if I wind up with an awkward length that could still be useful somewhere, I tend to play pack rat and hold on to that. Whew. This needs to warm up a bit. Do yourself a favor when you're working with this material and let it sit out in the sunlight for a while before you really get to work. There we go. And this side taken care of. And you might notice that there are different colors of line. This brown section is one that did have drip holes in it, but I cut a section off in between drip holes, and now it's regular line. Alright, so that'll take me that way. Alright, at some point my camera cut out. I don't know where that was, but here you can see I've got all this hooked together and there are no holes in it, which is the important thing. The kink is not important. It'll work itself out once I've got everything leveled off and the landscape staples anchoring it down, and I've run some water through it. So at this point I'm going to fill the bed. Now usually, if I've been keeping on top of things, I only need about 1 load of additional volume per year. But this spring I'm going to dump 2 loads of soil into this bed because the way I had the drip irrigation system laid out originally, it was really a pain to work around it, and so it made it easier for me to put off necessary maintenance of the bed. So the moral of that story is do it right the first time and it'll save you a lot of effort. So here's our second load in. That tippy wagon is really handy for dumping soil. Now this is soil from another part of the garden, so it will come with a burden of weed seeds that I'm going to be dealing with throughout the year. So pros, didn't have to pay for it. Cons, we'll pay for it in weeding. You can see the soil is just kind of winding up on top of the drip irrigation system, which is why I wanted to make sure I got to a part without holes before I proceeded. I'm going to rake this flat-ish. I'll hop in, rake up some of the clods. Normally I don't bother with the clods, I just let them work themselves out, because when you're top dressing with a layer of compost, that's really how it works out. Everything just kind of loosens up on its own and the soil gets cared for by the worms and the beetles, the various types of life, and you don't have to cultivate as much. But I am out of compost, as you may or may not recall, and so I'm going to put a little bit more effort into how I handle my substrate today. Now because I will be planting, in case you didn't hear, ground cherries in this bed, I'm going to go ahead and add some compost and manure bag mix that I picked up at Home Depot. Oh look, it's one of those pink spiders. These little guys eat pill bugs. So if you don't like pill bugs in your garden, then consider not killing those spiders on site, because they don't like pill bugs in your garden either. This is Earth Grow Steer Manure Blend. They are not a sponsor. Earth Grow, if you're watching, send me money. This is an amendment. They actually have a warning, a maximum amount you should add, which is kind of cool. They're like, add no more than an inch, presumably because more than that will burn your stuff. So the good news is that 16 square feet with 1 cubic foot spread over it is no more than an inch. So that's good. And I'm going to rake this in. See that I'm burying my drip lines some more. Now, if you don't own a metal rake, it is a great investment. I didn't own a metal rake, and this year I broke down and finally bought one. It was about 15 bucks, and it has already saved me at least $30 worth of labor. So, depending on how poor you are and how highly you value your labor, you should get one. Alright, and here we have a new bed ready to go. These are 2-foot long rebar stakes. Just gonna hammer them in like so. What am I doing? Soon you will see. This is what holds in the lovely hoops that I like to use. And because this is an empty bed, I am especially excited about putting hoops on it, because that means I can cover it with fleece and have a nice warm expanded cold frame space, basically, where I can acclimate plants to the outdoors. Do hammers work better than rocks? Yes. This is a 10-foot length of 3/4 inch PVC. Just do that real quick. Bend this down. Now doing them diagonally like this means that they won't have a tendency to flop outwards under stress. They'll kind of hold each other in place better under a load if they get snowed on without having to take any special precautions. Ooh, let's line that up. Alright, my camera cut out again. That's really annoying. So I've got this new bed all amended and ready to go with hoops installed. I can put my ground cherries now in the ground and place them under cover with the fleece that I've got. And I can also use the center of the bed, which will be empty, to acclimate some sweet peppers to the outdoors. So that's nice. Let's go ahead and finish the drip system. Alright, so I've got a hole punching tool. This cheap little thing is something I got from Home Depot. I've got drip line, so it's got holes down it. This particular one is 1/2 gallon per hour per dripper. I've got some landscape staples to put those down. I've got barbed connectors, and I've got goof plugs. The goof plugs will go in the ends so they don't run out the end. I'll just begin by punching my first hole. Sorry about my sniffles. It is allergy season. I take my temperature every day. It is normal. I assure you, I am not dying of COVID-19. Alright, so there's the first goof plug in. I mean the first 1/4 inch barb connector, not goof plug. Find the end. There it is. Ah, come on. Cut the wrong part of the tape, apparently. There we go. Go ahead and plug this in. Now, I like to have all of my lines starting at one end and then running to the other where they're loose, because that means that when I do my bed maintenance at the beginning or end of each season, I can flip everything back and out of the way. Now I've got a loose end. And this is why I like to cut with scissors, because I can use them to open all sorts of things while I work. And a goof plug in the end here keeps water from flowing out the end, and a landscape staple, hold it where I want it to stay. Now at Home Depot they sell little plastic things marketed specifically for drip irrigation systems. I've been very dissatisfied with them. Just buy landscape staples. Now I am spacing these probably more closely than I need to. So I think they can go about 1 foot apart. And I'm doing 2 per foot. That may or may not be a good idea, given that I live in a desert. So, well, practically a desert. We're just a few inches in excess of a desert per water year. Now any length you have beyond the drip holes is, well, probably not worth your time. So I'll usually just cut it off after a drip hole plus a couple inches, so I don't run into the hard parts with my scissors. Here we go. I'm going to stop talking and just get this installed so that you can fast forward through this whole process.
I can hear her heartbeat for 1,000 miles, and the heavens open up every time she smiles. And when I come to her, that's just where I belong.
Now I like it when I'm watching other people's videos and they fast forward through an entire installation. Apparently the battery saver mode on my camera doesn't let me do that whole thing. So you saw part of it, and here's the finished product. So I'm going to go ahead and plant my ground cherries in here and start using it as auxiliary space for my cold framing and acclimating as well, because I'm just going to have between 4 and 6 ground cherries in this whole bed, which means this center area is going to be wide open to do whatever I want with, like putting in trays of seedlings until I need to move them out again. So that's really, oh, here, let me show you. Here is a picture of a setup I've got to plug a hose into a drip irrigation system. And in that setup you can see I've got a hose adapter, an inline pressure regulator, and then a stopcock. Because you want to be able to shut off flow through that point when you switch from using your hose to using your automated timer system. If you're trying to have it both ways like I do. Otherwise, that's the whole thing. You run your system, you plug your bits together, and you're good to go. So that's a drip irrigation system in a bed. I'm also going to be installing drip irrigation in the long beds and in my solid bed. So that'll be really nice when it's all done. Now with any installation, it's a good idea to check your installation and make sure you've got no leaks and everything's running right. So you can see a few of these are not buried with mulch now, are in fact dripping. Yay! And I'm gonna run my system for a half hour now that I've got everything installed. You can see my ground cherry plants, which were just finished hardening off, are snuggled into their beds of mulch. In this case, the mulch serves two purposes. It allows me to find the ground cherries more easily when they fall off, because this is a fruit where you will be picking it up off the ground. So fewer cooties on the fruit when I pick it up. Also, the mulch will provide good insulation and reduce water evaporation, which in my climate is really nice. So this should be a really great bed for my ground cherries. Ooh, and now also it is a cold frame. Thank you very much. So I'm going to be moving my sweet peppers out into this bed and covering them with fleece. So, because look at that big open patch in the middle here. That is perfect. Thought I'd best talk about drip irrigation for these larger beds really quick before I wrap things up. For this I'm going to run 1/2 inch diameter drip line, just three runs of it. So I'm going to tee off from my main line I have down along the back fence there, and I'm going to come up, elbow, go back, elbow, come back up, and then cap it off. And that's it. I want to keep it simpler for this larger plot because I don't want to deal with a lot of those 1/4 inch tubes everywhere, because this is going to be a pain to maintain that way. Now in the future, when this becomes a long-term plot for raspberries, I'm going to alter my arrangement a little bit just so it's a double loop and not a triple, because I want to pull the water in away from the sides a little bit and encourage the raspberries to stay down the center of the row and not venture out to the edges of the bed, because that's how we control raspberries where I live, is we just water where we want them and we don't water where we don't want them. So for now, since I'm using this whole bed, I'll be growing corn and beans in this bed. I'm going to make sure that there's no more than a foot in any direction that doesn't have line running by it, and that should be enough for deep watering. Well, I've got seedlings in. That is going to need more water because their root systems are too small to reach my water sources uniformly, but once everything's grown up, that will be enough. That'll be enough drip line for the whole garden. So yep, I'm just going to take a picture when it's done, because laying 1/2 inch tubing with watering perforations is just the same as what you saw me doing over there without the drip line and 1/2 inch. It's just it has holes in it. So we're not going to learn anything new if I make you watch the whole process. So there's a tee where it comes in off of the main line I've got down along the fence. You can see I've laid it out. It's going to look a little bit weird and kinky for a while, just from needing to relax after being coiled up. But eventually the lines straighten up and you've got a nice long drip irrigation bed here. And this will kick out enough water to keep everything watered during your peak growth season. This at the end is called a figure 8 closure. So it just basically kinks the hose at the end. This is my first time using one. Looks like it works just fine. One nice thing about it is that it's really easy to take off and reposition. So the other ones I've got So here is the other type I've used in my system. It's just a screw-on cap that goes at the end. So this can screw off and you can actually put a hose attachment on it, which is pretty cool. But it's a much more permanent choice and maybe a little bit bulkier than you might otherwise like. So that's a good reason to go with a figure 8 connector, figure 8 closure at the end if you'd rather. But really do whatever you want. It's your drip irrigation system and it should look like what makes you happy. Okay, here's the peas. Just so you can, they're one of the fastest growing things in the garden, so it's nice to peek at them every once in a while. And I also forgot to say that today's date is the 24th? Friday, April 24th. So that's the vloggy thing you need to know. Oh, also, take a look over here. Despite having been traumatized, my strawberries are flowering. Common wisdom is that for new plantings you want to take the flowers off and force them to do vegetative growth for the first season. But I'm going to leave the flowers on because I will miss having strawberries otherwise. And I thought I'd better thin some lettuce really quick. Now, ideally you want to do your picking in the beginning of the day and in the morning when it's still cool. I've brought my good eating stuff container and my compost container out with me. And I'm just going to go through and pick every other plant about. Twist it out. There's the roots, there's the leaves. Now I will want to give this a good rinse because I've got muddy fingers. That's okay. You should always rinse your produce that you grow yourself. I know that maybe you're super conscientious about sticking to organic principles and whatever, but you'll still have birds flying over your garden doing bird business. Oh, you don't want to eat that. Thinning and picking. Look how red this is. Oh my gosh. So red. How close can I get? Can you see this? Is it in focus? We'll find out. Oh, so red. Alright, here you can see I've got everything thinned down to its final spacing. This is starting to really shape up as a salad bed. Here is what I picked for a salad. Look at the color in that. That's really nice. So, not bad for weeding. And that's how that's coming along. Hey, thank you for watching my video, and I hope I have more engaging content for you in the future. By which I mean more content that is engaging and also more engaging content. Thank you. Have a great rest of the month.